Distinguished guests, supporters and staff, welcome to our 11th annual charity lunch. Today we have a record number at this lunch. Some 900 people have come out to support us today. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here. Some of you have been invited, coerced, or dragged along to this lunch by some of our legendary board members, Mr. Chris Bates from KBE Human Capital, Mr. Mark Borrello from Borrello Legal, and Mr. Gary Castledine from CPS Capital. These three gentlemen, and I use that term lightly, have gathered together some 350 people for this lunch. Thank you guys for indoctrinating more people to our cause. Some of you have been to 10 of these lunches. The longevity of your support is inspiring, thank you. And some of you have arrived today for your first Parky lunch. Welcome. We hope you have a fantastic time, but more importantly, we hope that we can inspire you so that you will come back to support the work we do for children and young people who have experienced trauma from abuse. I ask you today to imagine this community within this beautiful city of Perth that has been afflicted by a plague that strikes down 1/4 of its daughters and 1 in 6 of its sons. Now this plague, whilst not being immediately fatal, lives on in the minds and bodies of these children for decades to come, thereby making them 13 times more vulnerable to its catastrophic effects. Those catastrophic effects most notably are cognitive delays, poor educational outcomes, difficulty in forming and maintaining a relationship, drug and alcohol abuse, suicide, homelessness and starvation, a series of intractable psychiatric disorders that will leave the child requiring treatment for the rest of their lives. How would the community of Perth respond? This plague I'm referring to is none other than child sexual abuse. Internationally, it has caused more misery and suffering than any of the great plagues of our history, including the bubonic plague and serious illnesses like tuberculosis and syphilis. It is certainly more devastating and widespread than the modern-day epidemics that seem to demand so much community attention and resources like heart disease, motor vehicle accidents, and AIDS. Despite this, the public's response to child abuse and child protection is fragmented, poorly informed. Child protection is a minefield of impossible decisions, the consequences of which live with these children for the rest of their lives. Statistics tell us that every 2 minutes there's a report of child abuse that needs to be deciphered, investigated, prioritized. That's about 90 children while we eat lunch. Each report describes in detail the trauma that accompanies the violation. Each report is about a little girl or boy confused, frightened, and in pain. The timelines for decision-making are pressured. Information needs to be gathered without compromising its quality. The longer it takes for child protection experts to evaluate the risk, the greater the risk to the child. The information itself is complex. Has the child told anyone about the abuse? What type of abuse occurred? Was the child abused once, twice, or over a number of years? Who harmed the child? Will they harm the child again? Is the child safe? What about the parents? Are they offenders or non-offenders? What is their capacity to look after the child? Were drugs involved? Was there alcohol abuse? Was there violence in the home? Does the child have to come out of the home? If the child has to come out of the home, where do they go? Foster care, extended family care? Once the child comes out of the home, when can they go back into the home? Can the child ever safely go back into the home? What about therapeutic resources? What sort of therapeutic resources are needed both now and in the future? School supports. What sort of school supports are needed both now and in the future? These decisions and more are made by the Department for Child Protection and Family Services, the police and Parkerville staff working together as a team. These professionals will be threatened with violence by family members or encounter a distraught, dysregulated, confused and angry child. These people are dedicated professionals. Please, there are a number of them in the room today. Can you acknowledge their contribution and commitment to these children? Children who have suffered abuse need access to stable care, protection from future harm, and long-term therapeutic involvement. However, reform to child protection often stalls when there are government funding cuts. These government funding cuts don't seem to impact on the building of a new sporting stadium or foreign policy travel expenditure or money to foreign aid, but they do affect the children and young people attempting to recover from child abuse in Western Australia. But it would be unfair to point the finger at a government to say all our problems rest with this underfunding, because child protection is a whole of community issue. And the sooner that we realise it's a whole of community issue, the sooner that we can raise the profile and the plight of these children, the sooner we can get more resources to give them the outcomes that they need. Let us not forget that these children are not in this place by choice or by accident or by some horrible biological act of fate. They're in this position because they were physically, sexually, and or emotionally abused by adults in whom they had placed their love and trust. That action, singular or repetitive, has changed their lives. And ladies and gentlemen, that is why we're here today, to support them. Consider this recent research that concluded in 2012 that said 1 in 3 Aussies would not believe a child if they disclosed they'd been sexually abused. That Aussies ranked child abuse as 13th on a list of community issues of importance behind petrol prices and public transport costs. That 1 in 6 Aussies were unclear whether sex between a 14-year-old and an adult would constitute child sexual abuse. And that 1 in 3 children who'd been sexually abused would end up abusing their own children later in life if therapeutic intervention wasn't on hand, thereby continuing on the cycle of abuse. Statistics. Easily said, easily forgotten. What is not forgotten, ladies and gentlemen, is when you care for a child who's been sexually abused. That memory tends to linger a bit longer. Consider Stella, a bright 10-year-old happy child doing well at school with a number of friends, until he came along. And even then, the grooming was insidious. She lost her innocence in the depths of the night. There was no one looking out for her while her small soul was torn apart. She kept it a secret. She kept it here inside because she felt such shame. And because they told her, no one's going to believe you, no matter how much you tell them you cried. So she waited and she watched for the pain to come again and again and again at the hands of loved ones sworn to protect and mend. She is safe now and hoping for tomorrow when the pain will be gone, when children like her are supported, not shattered and scorned. She hopes for the days when children will know that love with pain is not all right. These children cannot be dismissed or afraid to speak the truth. It would be fatal for us to overlook the extent of the problem that lies before us, to underestimate the evil that can occur within men's souls, to pontificate on potential solutions whilst more lives are devastated. These children need our help now. You people here today are not responsible for Stella's pain. Indeed, as I look out and see so many familiar faces, so many of you have been with us from when we cared for 200 children a year to now providing care and recovery for some 2,000 children a year. But we cannot walk alone in combating this societal disease. Government, non-government, corporate and community. We need to walk together. And as we walk together, we need to pledge that we will move forward. Alliances that have been formed between professional groups of non-government and government to work in integrated teams must continue. Alliances that have been formed to create a community awareness on the value of a child must continue. I'm often asked, when will you be satisfied? We will never be satisfied as long as the minds and bodies of children are violated. We will never be satisfied whilst the effects of trauma torment their souls. We will never be satisfied whilst evil minds plot to ingratiate themselves into the lives of the innocents. And therefore, Parkerville Children and Youth Care make this pledge to children and young people who have experienced trauma from abuse. We will be there for you. We will be there to help you recover. We will be there to help you help yourself. Let the community know that alongside our government colleagues, we will pay the price, bear the burden, meet the challenge and the hardship, to create more services and to drive child abuse from our society. No segment of our society is more crucial to human survival than its children. And in an aging society, not investing in children makes it a dying society. And so I say to you, for their sakes, for our sakes, let us convert our good words into good deeds. Thank you.